Synergee listeners, we are so excited to have you back listening today. Today, we are so thrilled to welcome Dr. Susan Fox to the show. Dr. Fox is a recognized leader in the women's health and functional medicine space with a special passion for supporting women on their fertility journeys. Throughout her career, she has helped countless women and couples understand the deeper story behind their reproductive health, looking way beyond symptoms to uncover root causes that impact hormones, cycles, and overall vitality. Her approach blends the best of modern medicine with functional and holistic strategies, empowering women with knowledge, personalized care, and practical tools to optimize their fertility naturally. What makes Dr. Fox's work so powerful is her compassion. You guys are going to hear that today. She knows how overwhelming, emotional, and often isolating the fertility journey can feel. Her mission is to bring clarity, hope, and sustainable solutions so that women can move from frustration to empowerment. Today, we're going to be diving into the functional medicine approach to fertility, what it really means to create the best possible foundations for conception and long-term health. Welcome, Dr. Susan Fox. We are so excited to have you here today with us.
Oh, thank you, Lori. It's so nice to be here with you and Kelly. I'm really, really grateful to have an opportunity to share my passion with your listening and viewing audience.
Yeah, I'm really curious. How did this passion for you? Our listeners always want to know your story. How did this passion develop for you?
Thank you. I mean, it's not the typical scenario where I went through an infertility journey. It was actually almost a little bit more mystical, if you will, in that when I first got licensed and went looking for a place to work and thought I was going to do gastroenterology work, I ended up across the hall from a reproductive endocrinologist, and his patients would be coming to me saying, "Can you help me?" And I said, "I would be happy to help you. I've got a lot to learn." And so, as we kind of pull up our sleeves and work together, I would be, doing everything I can to make you successful at having your baby. So it started in the IVF sector. And then, of course, as we know with functional medicine, oftentimes it became much more of a natural conception opportunity. People would come saying, "Okay, help me prep." And before they got into their IVF appointment, they were pregnant.
Such a familiar story, right, Kelly? Like, we didn't set out to do this, and then we just, and I would like to say it's not happenstance, God's way of navigating that course, right, to bring us in front of those that he is asking us to bless. So that's really cool that you had that experience, because it's so similar in the functional medicine space.
Right. I think that when we know we're divinely inspired, we can deliver so much more than any one of our singular brains could offer. It's coming from hearts.
Absolutely. So I spent my first 8 years in a clinical practice and OBGYN practice where we dealt a lot with infertility, a whole lot. So I've had my eye on this for many years. I didn't struggle with fertility either. So I'm kind of like you. I didn't fall into that camp. Yeah. But what I'm seeing today, almost 30 years later, is the women that struggled with infertility are having a really difficult time perimenopause and menopause, right? It's standing out to me. It's like, what are we going to do to help them not fall off the cliff? So I do want to get into that today, because I think there's so much from a functional standpoint that we can do to really enhance their health at a very early age so that they don't go down that pathway of really being miserable perimenopausally and then postmenopausally. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say it's just another step across the same bridge of being a woman with ovaries, or a person with ovaries, right? And a uterus. Right. Is that, if we are struggling with infertility, usually I call it subfertility, because really oftentimes there's not a true infertility. It's a toxic load that becomes then a disease process that can be undone. And frankly, in my opinion, should be undone for the sake of the health of the yet unborn child. And then the continuation of care of self-care that this woman, undergoes will only make her perimenopausal years much more comfortable. She will be much healthier, because a lot of our uncomfortable symptoms and signs are exactly that which occurred in our 30s and just didn't get undone or fixed or healed so that we could enter and what should be just a natural next phase.
I love subfertility. I love that because it actually opens the door to the hope that we give our clients that it's not an end state. It's
Exactly.
repairable and there's hope on the horizon.
Exactly. And presently we live in a dichotomy where, there are folks who would say, hurry, 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 get your IVF now because time is of the essence. And others would say, no, 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 wait, because we need to make sure you're healthy. And I personally feel that they can happen at the same time. Some women can't wait. And for some people, some families, IVF is the way for them to grow their family. But even if their appointment is tomorrow and they begin doing the healing today with root cause, by the time that retrieval happens or transfer happens, they're going to be healthier and they're going to be bringing in a healthier baby and having their own healthier postpartum and family.
Hi, friends, it's Kelly.
And Lori, and we are so excited to tell you about everything new inside the R2R app.
Listen, this is not just another health app. It's your safe space to reset, rebuild, and reclaim your energy, your confidence, and your health.
And the best part, downloading the R2R app is completely free. You're going to get weekly free content plus powerful resources to help you get started or help you stay on track, no matter where you are on your wellness journey.
Inside the app, we just launched our brand new VI Power program, created especially for women in midlife. Every month, you'll get fresh content, daily habit trackers, a private community chat, and live group coaching to keep you inspired and accountable.
And you can try VI Power free for 7 days. We know once you experience it, you're going to love the way it helps you show up for yourself every single day.
And if you're ready to go a little deeper, we do have our signature program, 40 Days to a Foundation of Wellness. This is a step-by-step journey that guides you through mindset, nutrition, detoxification, movement, and hormone balance, helping you build a strong foundation your health deserves.
It's not about quick fixes. It's truly about real transformation. So you can move from just surviving to truly thriving. So if you're ready to take back your health, download the R2R app today. It's free to get started, and your comeback starts here.
So can we get into some of those things that would create subfertility? You mentioned toxicity, right?
Yes.
And I love that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what are the things that we need to be really aware of? And I would say, even if you're not struggling with fertility, right?
Exactly.
If you're wanting a healthy pregnancy, or if you have a child that's about to be fertility age, right? These are the things I want you guys thinking of. And so what are those things?
So it's no secret, right, that we live in a pretty toxic world. And so we just need to do everything in our power to remove as many of the insults as we can. And so that can look like, from the nutrition side, eating organic, pesticide free, choosing, meats, if you're a meat eater, that are, grass fed and finished, or wild caught, or free range, and all of that, because each of these little insults, if there's are going to affect our hormones. And there are people who have said to me, oh, but it's so expensive to eat that way. And I said, well, it's a lot more expensive to have multiple rounds of IVF.
For
and
sure.
It's a lot more expensive to then have a disease process happening 10 years from now that could have been avoided. So certainly nutrition, which includes hydration, by the way. I think we are chronically dehydrated as a nation. Even though we're carrying around the 10-gallon Stanley cups, we oftentimes aren't really flushing ourselves with purified water and or electrolytes that would really help clean our cells. And then circulation, right? So we know that we're meant to move. Our bodies are designed to move, but here we are in front of our Zoom cameras, or sitting at our desks for far too long. So I'd say, find the time within your schedule to get up and move. And, for the fertility person, I actually also would say, let's get some targeted circulation, because a nice hike is wonderful. It's going to give you some good circulation. But if you want to get pregnant next month, let's get some targeted circulation. And that's the transcutaneous electrical acupoint stimulation protocols, they call it T's, that I had mentioned before, that have been shown to increase live birth rate for women over 35 undergoing frozen embryo transfer, so we already know that that's a cohort that has been struggling, by 42%. And,
Wow.
we know the stats of IVF are kind of dismal anyway. For that woman who's 35, her chances of having an IVF cycle bring a baby is only 25%. So 25 to 40. But if you can increase her whole health and her reproductive health and get targeted circulation, that is proven. These studies are more than 2,000 women who are being studied. So it's not just a one-off. Why wouldn't you do that?
Right. And that's something they can do at home, right?
Absolutely. This is in the comfort
Wow.
of their own home. I was so grateful to have a colleague of mine who is a researcher, be on my faculty at Health University, and has designed these 3 protocols. They're done every other day from the end of a menstrual bleed to ovulation in a cycle where you're trying to conceive naturally, or to egg retrieval if you're going through an IVF cycle, so that you really are just, getting this time, this constant attention to getting blood flow to these amazing organs that otherwise have oftentimes take a back seat to, our muscles that are in our organs that are involved in our fight flight response.
So is that T's procedure? I'm new to this, so I'm pretty
Yes.
excited about hearing.
Yes.
So they can do it in the comfort of their home. Is it something that has to be prescribed, or is
Nope.
it something they can purchase on their own, or is it purchasable?
It is purchasable. I have an online course within which is the T's protocol. And if you're local, you can come into my office and I can, also just hand it over. But no, somebody purchases the course which also includes, qigong exercises for the 4 weeks of a menstrual cycle, mind-body guided imagery that takes people through this is what's happening in your cycle, and some guided imagery about sort of calming this stress response, as well as the nutrition that I had just mentioned. So, yep, it just gets shipped off to you. The videos are right there, and you follow along, and it's pretty miraculous. I mean, I wish that it was not the best kept secret. I'm screaming to the void as much as I can to get the word out, because everyone should be doing it, in my opinion.
And it sounds like you've created an easy access to it too. That's what I'm picking up on, just to reiterate that you have a curriculum, you have an education in which they're taught, they don't just get it, they're being taught how to use, and maybe even some other modalities alongside of to make it more effective. So,
exactly. Yep. And we're all busy. We're all some kind of too busy, right? So the beauty of this program is it's a DIY. So the modules are there, the videos are there to say, this is how you do it. And then I'm here. If there's a question, we can do a video consult call or something like that. But I really, nobody calls because it's so easy. They only call and say, guess what? I'm pregnant.
Well, I hear you saying it's easy, but what I really hear you saying is that the curriculum is designed in a way that it gives them all that they need.
Exactly.
But
It's empowering.
out to you. Exactly. Knowing that they can reach out to you if they needed to is kind of an add-on value to what you offer. So
that's exactly right. And that was my impetus, is that far too often I would have a person in my practice, just a brilliant person, CEO, lawyer, doctors even, say, how do I not know this about my own body? And it both crushed me and then infuriated me that we don't know this, and that when the remedies are there to, learn about our bodies, learn what's happening at different phases of our cycle, and then work with those phases as they did in, hundreds of years ago.
So you mentioned stress response, right?
Yes.
And stress is such a big component, right, to dysregulation of hormones. So what do you think is what is the biggest driver that you see of stress for women of childbearing age? And then what are the things that you recommend that they do to help resettle that limbic system, resettle their nervous system so that they do function their best?
Right. Well, I would say it's kind of a 2 or 3 pronged approach, in that, the stress response first needs to be dealt with if there are, again, these environmental insults, by cleaning up our diet and again, taking back our power over our own health, but then also taking the time to wind down, to quiet, because we are always, we're trained to be so busy that we don't spend that time in quiet. So the guided imagery modules and the qigong modules are also designed to do just that as well. So we come out of school and we're then right on the fast track to either work or post grad school, and so we're almost conditioned to choose stress response over,
Yes.
and we're kind of designed, right? It's just, as human beings, we're designed to look for danger. So we really need to practice, and that's why they call all of these things practices in advance. These how to calm our mind and spirit, which then calms our hormonal, our physiology, which then calms our neurotransmitters, which then lets us sleep better at night for restoration and recovery. So just really taking that time to, and it doesn't have to be the modules of guided imagery. It could be whatever you love to do. And I'll oftentimes say to someone, what did you love to do when you were 10 or 11? Because that's usually a good little portal, a thread into what might be your stress recovery activities or time. For some, it may be knitting. And for others, it's really good to have that guided imagery.
So, Dr. Fox, you said something that I think we need to go back to. It was so profound. But the human experience of being stressed is a natural response to our environment.
Exactly.
It saves our life on a daily basis, right? And oftentimes we get so frustrated with ourselves because we're stressed out and we can't get this thing figured out. And what we have not built into our society in a powerful way is the practice of controlling our stress response or being calm.
Right.
That's what's missing. So all of our moms out there listening, I think really training our little ones. And how do we get to a calm place, right? I know I didn't train my little ones that way. I was like, just suck it up and let's go.
Yeah. I didn't train my little one, but thankfully her kindergarten teacher was a black belt in I want to say Taekwondo, but it was more meditative, and they would have practices every day where they would center before they entered the classroom, and they would have meditation time in their day, and it really that actually helped teach me to teach her to continue it long after kindergarten.
I just love our teachers, right? They have such a good spirit and heart, and to teach your little one to teach you. That's how it usually happens, right? We learn things through our kids.
And it still does. She's 33 and she's still teaching me.
We can relate.
We're designed to be looking for danger, but we're also designed to then shake it off, right? We'd beat or run away from that saber-toothed tiger, but then we'd get to our cave and be able to then re-regulate. And in our lifestyle today doesn't give us opportunities to take that time to shake it off or to rest and recover. So we just need to claim it. I mean, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And so we can all find 10 minutes as to at the beginning of the day and the end of the day to say, this is how I want my day to unfold, and how did I do, and how can I repair?
And after they start doing that, like, as you said, through practice, they begin to see that their day is better. They begin to see how they respond and show up to things in a more positive, favorable way. They like how they show up, and it does become more repetitive for them to do it. But to your point, it does take practice, and it's not a natural default pattern, unfortunately.
Right. But it can become that again with the practice, and then we take it also into the if they're going into IVF, they have more agency in their from their place of calm to be fully engaged in their process, so they're not quite feeling subject to or victimized by the medical intervention that they're needing or choosing for bringing home their babies.
So can we go back and talk about timing?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Because I think this is such an important conversation to have. My daughter went through not infertility, but she had endometriosis diagnosed at age 15. And had a very astute OBGYN that looked her in the eyes and said, find your person and have your babies early. And she did that, Right. And at the time she said that to my 15-year-old, I was like, don't you dare say that to my 15-year-old. She needs to have a career and she needs to do all the things and travel before she thinks about babies. But I think that was very wise advice for her, right? She's had 4 healthy pregnancies, has done really well in that regard. But I think that most people don't have the opportunity to really think about their priorities in life and what they really want to do, right? And how does that
even
fall?
if it is a priority, perhaps life doesn't bring that partner to them until
Absolutely.
30s.
Yeah. And so I would just say to the women out there that they don't even think about having babies until they have finished their college degree and their graduate program and they've set in their career, and now it's like, okay, I'm ready to have babies.
So timing wise, what I would say to that person is to at least get your labs done. Get some basic labs done at age 27, 28. So are there markers that are of concern that you want to take into account? And frankly, something like endometriosis or polycystic ovaries, there are many disease patterns, if you will, or diagnoses that can be reversed. They can at least be arrested.
Sure.
And can be reversed. So find out what is the state of your fertile health if you want to have babies. And frankly, even if you don't want to have babies, because the state of your fertile health, as we said at the beginning, is indicative of the state of your perimenopausal and menopausal health. Our ovaries are not solely for purposes of producing eggs and getting, having babies. They communicate with just about every organ in our body forever. So we really want to do our part to help them be as healthy as possible for as long as possible.
And I think in that, them understanding too, that these labs aren't labs that our traditional medical doctors are doing. These labs that you're speaking of, or biomarkers that you're speaking of, are more of the preventative health, proactive, because, you're speaking to a state of dysfunction, not disease.
Right.
And so really seeking out a qualified healthcare practitioner who's looking at these biomarkers in a preventative health way, looking at these hormonal shifts or imbalances, these early markers to really give those, because there's lots of clues and cues right there in that data that can give you that foresight to listen, on the horizon is this. But if you do this, this, and this, and that's what I've heard you say a couple times already today, and this is something that Kelly and I talk about a lot, is if you do these 3 things that are very impactful, you have the potential to reverse this and maybe not even have to deal with the frustrations.
So some of them are the sort of the traditional markers, right? We do need to know, what is the state of our for a woman, of our ovaries. For a man, it's not a bad idea to get a sperm analysis early, so you can see what's going on. But to your point, there's much more than the FSH, AMH, progesterone, estrogen question. There's how is your vitamin D? How is your thyroid? Is there any antibody activity taking place? Are there any other inflammatory markers showing up or symptoms showing up? Because sometimes we don't see it in a lab, but if the symptoms are presenting, then we want to pay attention to that. So to your point, absolutely, you want to find a qualified functional medicine provider, because I mean, no disrespect to the conventional medicine model, but they have their limitations almost by design of the system, where if you are not showing an out of range pathology, you're fine. And so many people are sent home saying your labs look fine, when they're like, well, if my labs look fine, why do I feel like crap? Pardon my French.
Yes. Well, you are in light company. We say it all the time. Fine's not fine.
Exactly.
I don't want to feel fine. I want to feel excellent. Exactly. And I want to bring back those markers. I love that you actually mentioned them, because we do have a following of listeners that have been on this journey for quite some time, and they have more advanced speak. And so I would add to that, and certainly, correct if wrong, but insulin, I would say, and C-peptide, and some of those advanced markers in blood sugar dysregulation too, and those inflammatory markers.
Yep. Especially blood sugar dysregulation with insulin, showing signs of insulin resistance or high A1C inflammatory markers for that person whose metabolic dysregulation is then creating the polycystic ovarian syndrome diagnosis, and it pains me to see in the fertility field that siloing of PCOS as an issue solely related to fertility, when in fact we know this is a metabolic issue that's going to affect this person for the rest of her life and possibly her progeny, her children and her grandchildren. So because our, we are the result of our grandmother's eggs that were in her body and when our mother was in utero. So and we can make that shift now. And again, that's where I feel almost like an activist. Like I feel it's so empowering to say, if you make this change now, you're literally changing the future of health.
Not for just one generation, right? Yeah. For 3 generations at least, we're changing the trajectory of that health. And so it is so impactful. I told Lori a couple of years ago, A4M came out with an infertility course that I did the certification for, because I felt like that. I felt like we've got to be doing something about this, not just for conceiving, but having a healthy pregnancy and then protecting the health of that mom. Throughout her life cycle.
That baby is going to grow up to be a decision maker, having an impact on the world. And if that decision maker is coming from a place of dis-ease or ill health, guess what kind of decisions they're going to be making? Well, we're kind of finding ourselves in that pickle right now, aren't we? Having come off, decades of, processed foods and poor nutrition, people are not always making their best choices. And it's because their brains were not fed so they could do some critical thinking as youngsters.
I would say their palates were not developed either, right? They grew up eating highly processed foods, and so that's what their palate craves. And so it's a very difficult shift to make if that's how they started out eating that way, right, as a small child. Yeah.
And I want to go back to something you said, Kelly. Yes, you did say that. And I truly got chills as you were speaking, Dr. Fox, just about that, because that has been our heart and soul. And I think you layer on the C word, COVID. That's the other C word, right? That just
the current C word.
The current C word. That just layered on another layer of difficulty. And so I think that we really do have to collectively be loud and clear and out there and really helping our children and their children and just getting the word out that it doesn't have to be this way. Right. And, I want to add in one other biomarker, and that's probably genetics.
Yeah.
And genetics around methylation,
exactly.
Genetics around inflammatory markers. And I'm sure that there are more, but those play a role too.
Without a doubt. We know that MTHFR gene mutation is oftentimes the cause for recurrent pregnancy loss. And that person is loading herself up on folic acid that she's not translating into folate. And so that baby is getting no folate, and she's getting way too much folic acid buildup in her system. So these are the kind of discrete ways in which a functional medicine provider will look at you and your labs, and will investigate things like, what are the clotting factors looking like? What are the inflammatory markers looking like?
Yes. And with that is also sitting down, as I'm sure you do with the clinic, the clients that come into your clinic, is sitting down and really gaining that history too. 80% of what we do really is in that history. And data is so, so important. Yep. But I think we're conditioned as clinicians in traditional medicine to really rely just solely, maybe 80% diagnostics and 20% history. And we really need to flip that around, because that piece is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. As a Chinese medicine, provider, that's my doctorate is in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. Our training is absolutely that we don't work with diagnoses in the conventional medicine model. We will say the words, but really we're looking at pattern irregularities that have taken place, pattern dysregulation. And if the pattern is dysregulated, and you're seeing it as a pattern, it's a lot easier to see how to rectify it. If someone is too hot, inflammation and even emotionally too hot and bothered, that will give us a way in which to say, okay, this is what I'm seeing happening for you. And almost like viscerally, they feel it. They feel seen. They're like, that's exactly it. And that's not going to show up in labs, right? It's not a fever.
So we're energetic beings, right? In your world of acupuncture, what would you say about that? Like, how do you help balance out energetically a person? And then what does that lead to? How does that help them?
We are energetic beings, right? We know we use the term chi. We know that life force continues after the body is done. And so our job is to work with that chi, that life force, and say, okay, if it's feeling dysregulated, if it's feeling stuck, how do we open it up and move it? And that's where acupuncture can be brilliant. If it's feeling deficient, how do we support it? And that's usually where herbs and supplements and diet and that kind of thing can come in. But we're always trying to find homeostasis, right? Harmony. And so that's the goal, is to say, okay, where do I feel out of alignment, and how do I find my way back to that alignment? And it would take probably a week to go into the five elements and what we would look like. But I'll give you five simple examples so that people can say, oh, this does make sense. So with that hot and bothered kind of person, that heat, that tends to be someone who either their liver chi is that and I'm not just speaking of your organs of detoxification, but your creative process is being squelched. And so that person is going to find herself being more irritable or depressed. And so that's a sign. You're not going to see that in a lab, but she knows she's having this experience. And rather than take a pill for that, let's find a way to get that chi moving again, so she can kind of remember her creative potential, the spirit she came in to be and to deliver. If another person is feeling bogged down, is the word I would use, they're just feeling foggy headed, they're gaining weight, they're feeling lethargic, we refer to that as the earth and the spleen digestive system. So that's a sign for us to say, oh, we need to look into that a little bit more, and we probably would do a deeper dive into the dietary and lifestyle things. That person needs to warm up so she can kind of melt off some of this accumulation that's happening. If someone is actually really being, what's the word? Almost like a tendency to dread the other shoe dropping. They wake up in the morning and regrettably the first thing they're doing is to see, what terrible news has befallen overnight. That person needs to have we call it the water element, her kidney organ system fortified, because that really is our energetic trust fund that we were born with, and that needs to sustain us through our last breath. And so we really need to really help that person do what she needs to do, whether she needs to actually, in some cases it is to warm up, in other cases it is to rest and cool down. But those are just some examples how we use patterns that are patterns in nature that we mirror inside of ourselves to course correct and get back to that state of, we use the term harmonize, but it's homeostasis.
Yeah. The human body is so incredible, isn't it?
It's interesting the different ways we can look at something and assess something and come up with, solutions for that issue. What came to my mind when you were describing those is, we treat a lot of patients with chronic illness, right? And limbic system dysregulation can become a part of that. And so when I heard you say, the person that gets up thinking about what other shoe is going to drop, maybe they feel really good. Maybe they're making progress, but they're in the back of their mind thinking, okay, when is it going to get worse again?
Yes.
When am I going to feel bad again? Do you have any things that you use, any techniques that you use to kind of calm the limbic system in that way for ongoing support? Like, what does that tell you?
Well, so in private practice, it would be acupuncture for sure. It's just an amazing, influential tool to help regulate systems, the nervous system that's gone out of balance. If a person is not able to get in to see her acupuncturist, I would say these very tools that we have already mentioned, the practices of mind body awareness, mindfulness, are your ticket to freedom. So before you pick up the phone and to see what has befallen us overnight, instead put on a guided imagery app.
So interrupt the pattern. is what
Exactly.
you're looking for.
Create a new pattern, because it's really hard to stop an old habit, but
Sure.
we can replace it with a new good habit. And then, pretty soon, it doesn't only takes, a week or two to really say, oh, I'm feeling the benefit of this. Maybe I won't pick up my phone just because I used to. Maybe instead I will do my mindfulness, prayer, meditation, journaling, music, whatever brings you to your spirit.
And we know we've heard it over and over again and so often we are conditioned to roll over, pick up that phone
Yeah,
and read the first thing that, pops up on the screen. And we've heard over and over again that that needs to stop immediately.
exactly.
Because the reality of that is that self perpetuates so many other things throughout the day.
Right.
And it really is driving it's driving a pattern of unhealthiness.
Exactly. It's
So get
making us.
up, even if it's not in your bed and doing those practices, but get
Mhm.
into some of those new habits. Get outside, look at natural light.
You just took the
Right?
words right out of my mouth. Get your
Yes.
face to the sun.
Go, yes, go see it. Yes. And
Mhm.
what that brought to mind, I loved that Kelly went back and said what it brought to mind as you were sharing some of those things as what you do in your clinical practice. I think it is definitely a reminder of how important it is to have a team of providers of care who's on your wellness team,
Yes.
because it can be very the likelihood of finding all of these services in one location
Mhm.
under one roof is quite unlikely.
Right.
And so really the importance of thinking about things like who is in your local area, who is able to do things like acupuncture, massage, some of those other things, those modalities. And we
Mhm.
talk about that a lot with our clients is developing that team. So I did want to ask you, the question is how does one find a qualified, like what would someone look for in when they're seeking out acupuncture?
Sure. So for a fertility specialist, there is a group, an international group called the Acupuncture and TCM Board of Reproductive Medicine, ABORM.org. And we are a self-tested and rigorous. So the testing is harder than getting your licensing degree or certification, that to demonstrate that we have done the study, that the level of study that will help us translate the IVF world to human speak, so that we can really help this person navigate through her fertility journey. Again, somebody doesn't need to be going through IVF, but that is sort of the standard that we use, because it's such a foreign world. It's full of foreign languages, or foreign words. So that would be a resource that the fertility folks could actually just go on and feel that they can have a vetted, trusted resource. Otherwise, I would say, if you're not looking for fertility or for women's reproductive health, and you find someone in your area, do your research. Like go to the board to see, is there any complaint against this person? Ask around. Ask your the people who you do trust. Who would you recommend? And usually, those of us who are in the work, in doing the work, we have our own network, right? So I have reproductive endocrinologists that I know will be the right person for, because it's not just the IVF center, it's the person. So I will make my referrals based upon the patient in front of me. So, your personality would really go well with this person, whereas your personality would really go well with this other person. And then a whole, group of psychologists, because again, it's a stressful experience. Doulas, postpartum lactation consultants. There's a whole perinatal community that I can just say, here you go. You've got all of these trusted resources, and
How
something
important
like
that is.
Synergee.
It does take
Yes, synergy, exactly.
For that matter.
Exactly. Hence the name.
Uh-huh.
So I am not familiar, I hate to admit this, with Tai Chi. Like, I don't think I've ever experienced Tai Chi. So I'm curious if that modality would be considered like a somatic exercise. Like,
Yes, it is. It is a moving meditation.
right.
Qigong and Tai Chi are almost, they're very, very similar. So they're both East Asian moving meditation. And they're like yoga, there are specific movements that we do to help move the chi through the various meridians so that we are balanced at the end. So it's a whole study. It's beautiful. And frankly, it looks like a beautiful dance, but when you really, utilize it and it becomes part of your being, it's also self-defense. Because these very movements that look like just a fluid dance movement is also the movement that will push someone out of your way without the stress of fighting and fleeing. Mm-hmm. It heightens one's awareness about the world around them. So you can either get out of the way of an anticipated, a moment where you go, something's not right over there. Or it helps you to just kind of deflect if that's what needs to happen.
I think that's so important. We're so hyperstimulated, but oftentimes we're also very narrow focused when we're out in the world. And we're not aware of what's going on around us and dangers maybe that we should be aware of. So it is interesting.
Right. And that's our spirit again, right? That's our intuition is our spirit trying to engage with us. But we are so enamored with our frontal lobe only that we don't take the time to pay attention to this other way of knowing that is frankly oftentimes much more intelligent than our calculating brains. So yes, all of that just takes us back once again, like really, really, really do yourself a world of good by taking time back for yourself. You're a precious being. Come into the world to do something very important in the world. Wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you recognize that for yourself? Why wouldn't you fortify that for yourself so that you can give better of what what your special gifts are?
So oftentimes, Lori and I will say, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first, right? Before you can be taking care of the other people that are important to you in your life. And the pushback is always time.
Yes.
Right. Overcommitment and time.
And I will say the same thing. I often try to throw myself the same excuse. And then I have to just stop myself saying, nobody has more time than I do in a 24-hour day. So it's just about making that decision of, maybe it is getting up a little earlier. Maybe you set your alarm for 5:30, which means you go to bed a little earlier because you don't want to forfeit your sleep. But whatever is going to let you in your lifestyle reclaim some of that time, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It really will open up all of these other ways of fully being human so that we're not just little gerbils on the wheel trying to get through yet another day.
I think about, we oftentimes talk about food waste and economizing with food because people also say that food is expensive, right? And so we look for waste first as a way to economize. What am I throwing away? What can I be doing better in that way? And I think about time in the same way. Like, what are we wasting our time focused on and doing that's not really serving us? How can we get those minutes back? And then how much, because we have such lack of energy and vitality, how much time is it taking us to do a task that should take us 5 minutes?
Right.
And it's taking us 20 minutes, maybe an hour because of lack of focus. Are there any other things you would say about time? Like, how do we pull that back and get control of that?
I would say it's first for, again, oxygen mask on before assisting others. So that 10 to 15 minutes for yourself. So there is a self to be in relationship with others, and then the relationship with others, right? So who in your world is important to your heart. That should be priority number one. So, we and the God within is required in order to be in relationship with anybody else. But so often we also forfeit some of our most important relationships because we're too busy running through an email list where we really don't even care what's, on the email list. So unsubscribe to a lot of subscriptions. That'll free up a lot of time, even cleaning out your email box every day.
But social media, get off of social media.
Exactly.
Yeah, that could be one too.
Exactly.
I often say, and this, came to me, I have these epiphanies sometimes on my walks or whatever, you get out in nature and all kinds of things flood in, right?
Uh-huh. Oh yes, my dog is my best spiritual counselor.
Exactly. But, we leave leftover time, we're going to get leftover results. So if we're leaving leftover time to do the things that are most important to us, we're going to get leftover results.
I
And
love that.
to your point, it's really prioritizing those things. And that reprioritization doesn't happen one and done. That's
No,
what I hear you saying. It's a constant reevaluating, with what's important to you and choosing to make sure that you are changing things around that aligns. We talk a lot about congruence because at the end of the day, if we are not actively in pursuit of the things that are most important for us, and we end up distracted to the things that are not, we end up misaligned, incongruent, and that
exactly.
leads to chaos.
Exactly. And when we take that time to respect ourselves and the wonderful precious gift that we've been given, then the things that aren't congruent will oftentimes fall away. And that can be, friendships or relationships or communities that we may have outgrown. So it's bless it and move on and back into being true to oneself and one's purpose.
Yes, for sure. Would it be okay? I would like to move into postpartum, if that would
Oh,
be all
yes, of
right. Because
course.
I know we've talked a lot about the infertility and kind of leading up to, but
Hmm.
postpartum recovery can be a really difficult time. And I was just kind of wondering, do you have some, recommendations for what one can do as a family to
Hmm.
create whole body health in
Hmm.
that postpartum time frame?
Absolutely. Yes. We refer to the postpartum time as the fourth trimester in Chinese medicine. And we refer to the act of what is called mother warming, because a mother having delivered her baby and nursing her baby, we refer to breast milk as blood, the mother's blood. And so it can be very depleting. And so whereas in the past, when we lived a village life, all of the women of the village would come in and help take care of, feed the rest of the family so that you could, and feed the new mother so she could be fully fortified. We don't have that anymore. So once again, I'm sorry to say the onus is upon us to create that beforehand. If you wait until after the baby's born, it's going to be harder to say, okay, what do I need? Because we're 110% dedicated to keeping this new being alive. But we can start in before delivery by finding out, like, is there a mother's club in your area? Join it. Is there another kind of support group in your area? Sign up for it. Do you live near family? Ask for some help in advance, like maybe a meal train or something for a couple of weeks, or just coming to do the laundry or something like that, so that mother can rest while baby's resting. Because I mean, really, if she can get good rest in that first 3 to 4 weeks, she's pretty much golden. If she can't, she's going to be depleted for probably a good year and a half.
So that investment for the first 3 to 4 weeks is huge in the outcome for the next 18 months, really. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
I
And
love what you said about planning.
Yeah.
Planning ahead, because again, when we are reactive and we are already overwhelmed, change, right?
Yeah.
Particularly with the first one, I think, maybe I could be wrong, but as you have, the next one and the next one, there's certainly the nuances between them, but that first time is probably one of the hardest. And planning ahead, just
Yeah.
as if you would plan anything else. I remember a situation with I have some girls that I have birthed, and I've had the blessings of being able to help them learn from my stuff, of course, if passing it on. And I remember having a conversation with my daughters about that. And even from the second, you come home, is setting some boundaries in respect to visitation.
Oh, absolutely.
Those are things where they're like, that those are challenging times, because they're like, they want everyone to be able to come because everyone's so excited too.
Right.
But having, even leaning into maybe some help in making those decisions, because you don't really know what you're going to be facing. So I would imagine a counselor, someone that they could talk to make those decisions, would be helpful too, to have on their wellness team.
Yep, absolutely. But have that almost in writing, so that you can share it with ease with everyone. Thank you in advance for honoring that this is how we're going to start our family, and we'll send out photos, but when we're happy to have you come on in, and meet the baby and meet our new family in a few weeks. But we need this time to just be in the veil of brand new parented, brand new family, even with not just the first, with additional children as well. And I just wanted to give a little tidbit of like how to plan, like what's an example of how to plan. Make some bone broth well in advance, freeze it, put it into ice cubes so that you can just, have that because it's very replenishing for, blood loss and for the nutrients and the minerals. So have that at the ready. Maybe have, some really healthy oat milk at the ready, because if you're struggling with lactation, we know that oats are very galactagogues, and so just having some oat milk at the ready, so you're not wondering later, oh my gosh, I'm struggling, I'm not producing breast milk. Now what do I do? And it's kind of hard to eat enough oatmeal without becoming too full. So those are the kind of things. Have some soups at the ready, some stews, some casseroles. In Chinese medicine, we like to have things cooked, and we like it cooked in a pot, so you're not missing nutrients, right? You're not cooking something on the grill, or boiling, or roasting the vegetables. If it's all cooked in the same pot, you're going to get all of that benefit. And it's easy to digest because, again, a mama's body has been through a lot during pregnancy and delivery and postpartum. So get those nutrients into her.
Well, this has been incredible. Such a blessing to have you on. And I look forward to meeting you face to face next week at the upcoming conference. I think that's going to be incredible. Are there any parting things you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think I would just like to say, you've got this. We don't know. No one knows what life is going to bring, but trust in yourself, trust in your life, and be your advocate. Like demand that people treat you the way you want to be treated, and that you treat others accordingly. And that includes things like your nutrition and hydration, your circulation, your sleep, your social relationships, so that you really can live the most fulfilled life, be the healthiest mother, raise the healthiest family, participate in the healthiest community. And as I said, like, let's change the future.
And the time is now. Don't wait.
Absolutely. The time is always now. It's never too late, and don't wait.
Yes. So how would one get in touch with you? Again, to Kelly's point, thank you so much for taking the time and for your expertise and just your honesty, transparency, and obviously your commitment to the betterment of those that you get a chance to serve. And so it's an honor to be here with you today. So how do people get in touch with you?
Thank you. So if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area and want to see me in person, my website is drsusanfox.com, drsusanfox.com. If you are interested in doing like the online course, the T's that I had mentioned, that is another website called healthuniversity.co, and university is spelled Y-O-U because it's the University of you. There's, you can reach me through email through that website as well, or just go ahead and check out the courses. And feel free to email, through either of the websites. I make myself available. There's not a barrier.
Well, thank you so much for all of your inspiration today. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
I will. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so very much. And I look forward to seeing you in person next week.
The Synergee Podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.